We're going to say hello to Max now. Max, welcome to Ground Zero.
Hello there. It's so lovely to be with you.
And it's so wonderful to have you on. Tonight, I'm sure we're going to have a very, very deep and interesting discussion about our origins and some of what I've been talking about, what's happening in the Baltic Sea right now with the finding of this anomaly. Have you heard or do you have an opinion on what's going on out there?
My time and my current commitment to some organization would not allow me to go in depth about the Baltic Sea event. But basically, any appearance or report on underwater activities generated by unidentified submerged objects, as we already know since 1948, it's related to either the post-war German scientists who left Germany on April 21st or 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
They went to secret bases in Argentina and somewhere else. Or these events are related to the intraterrestrial. The term intraterrestrial is composed of two words in Latin: intra, which means from within, side, and terrestrial from the Latin, which means earth. It means aliens who live on earth. We have lots of documentation on this topic. Now, those unidentified flying objects and submerged objects that now they are taking Europe, as you said, by storm, are piloted by the Grey. In modern ufology, they refer to the Grey as the Zetas, who came from Zeta Reticuli.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they navigate is so amazing because they use a new navigation system that can't be detected by any sonar system or any space satellite. They call that the corridor plasma. Now, this corridor plasma has been used in the Baltic Sea, as well as it was used in the English Channel, near Norway, in Malta, in Lebanon in 1958, and for the past 13 years near Otek, the military naval base, in the Bahamas. So
talking about Otek. Otek is a military base in the Bahamas that is so secret, not many people talk about Otek.
Well, they can't, because in the past, two scientists, to be very honest, one scientist and one person who worked at Otek as a remote viewer, did they had the guts to go public, and they said what appears to be some joint operations between the Greys, the intraterrestrial alien, and the American Navy. And this is what they were allowed to talk about. As you said perfectly, it is the new Naval 51 area, Area 51.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this now is taking the lead in a futuristic and meta-space program. The meta-space program, it is any vehicle or any flying machine, anti-gravity machine, or time machine that penetrate space pocket in the fourth dimension or parallel dimension. And it links the Grey to outer space as well as to underwater, because when they use those machines, and what they're using now in the Baltic Sea and somewhere else as well, they use those machines to jump from space-time pocket to another space-time pocket.
So they open up. Do they open up wormholes? Is that what they do? They open up some sort of a magnetic wormhole to go from pocket to pocket?
That's correct. Now there is a report. I think it's no longer top secret because everything leaks in America. They said that those machines, when they don't have a traditional flight pattern like we see with normal jets and airplanes, what they do, they jump from. They don't fly, they jump. This was written in the report, the military report, by using the verb jump. It means they jump from one time space pocket to another time space pocket. It's not yet a wormhole, because the wormhole, or the galactic door called Bab in Anunnaki, it leads to an outer space dimension. The space-time pocket is very close to Earth. It's a parallel dimension. This is why sometimes we see a UFO flying in front of us, and oh dear, all of a sudden it disappears, because it leaves the first pocket and jumps into the second pocket. never been understood by the ufologists and by the civilians.
Well, Max, what we will do, I'm going to take a break right now, but what we will do is I want to talk more about all of this that you're bringing up, the time-dimensional travel, the intraterrestrials is what you call them, the science behind it, all of the things that go with ufology, both underwater ufology and what goes on in the sky. I guess you could call it USO. There are a lot of reports over Lake Michigan, the Great Lakes, Great Salt Lake and Salt Lake City. That's another place where a lot of UFOs are seen, over Antelope Island. A lot over the oceans. And many stories have been buried regarding UFOs in the relationship to the sea. Their emergence from liquid medium has gone relatively ignored. And as my guest, Max de Lafayette, has said, you know, the Germans were doing their tests in the Baltic Sea of their flying saucers. Oddtech is a place that's seldom talked about. It is the Area 51 of the ocean. It's the Area 51 of the ocean. It's near the Bermuda Triangle, of all places. And what's interesting is all the artifacts that are underwater there, the Bermuda Triangle, are spoken of as well. They know that there's power in the ocean. They know these things. And when we're talking about intraterrestrials, as Max de Lafayette has brought up in our introduction, you start to see that there is a connection to water, bodies of water, water and aliens, water and the extraterrestrials. They descend from the sky, plunge into the sea, or they plunge into some inland lake. And this raises the question, do aliens find refuge in our ocean? Is that what makes them attracted to coming here, is the water? I know that Brad Steiger had speculated that if he wrote a book called Atlantis Rising, he had said that we could trace some of these stories to inner space, interdimensional beings, interspatial, interterrestrial beings, right here on Ground Zero. Stay tuned. When were the first UFOs and USOs first reported, and how far back do we go?
All right. Now, to really understand once and for good, what is ufology? How can we understand UFO and USO? We have to establish briefly chronology and timetable, as you said, about UFOs and USO. Nowadays, for instance, listen to that. Every time we see a flying object in the skies, 99% of the populace, of the people, assume it came from outer space. This is absolutely wrong. It does not come from outer space. And I'm going to explain to you why and how and when UFOs appear in our mythology, in our history, and on Earth. UFO and USOs are the very same thing, because all they come from underwater. So UFOs are basically the USOs, and they have seven phases of appearances in our life, and 7 different origins. The origin one, the very first phase, the very first origin, started at the bone of the Earth's birth. UFO came from various extraterrestrial civilizations, including our creators, the Anunnaki. There were also the Lyran. There were also the Zetas, and extraterrestrial from Ashtari, Aldebaran, also known to us as Alpha Tauri. They came here to explore the cosmos as we do explore our solar system. In other words, some were from our galaxy and others from beyond. This primordial phase ended millions of years ago. So this is an extraterrestrial phase. Finish with that. The second phase, which is extremely important and which was the base or the foundation upon what many TVs now shows and many talks and internet websites were created, they refer to the ancient times of UFOs. Now this origin and this phase take us back to 10,000 to 11,500 years in the past. And it ended when the Anunnaki, who lived on Earth for thousands of years, left Earth. You know, they came from Ashtari, Aldebaran, and they lived for thousands of years in many parts of the world. So the origin of the UFOs during that period is both extraterrestrial, because they came from outer space, they came from the planet of the alien, and they were also terrestrial, because the Anunnaki who lived on Earth here in Mesopotamia, in Africa, in Anatolia, in Phoenicia, kept on creating and manufacturing UFOs on Earth. So this is the second. The third one, the third origin, it starts between 30 BC and 1898. During that period, the Anunnaki, who created the first civilization on Earth, and not in Mesopotamia, as many TV show hosts predict and confess and suggest, the first civilization started in Turkey, in Anatolia, and in Phoenicia, modern-day Lebanon. So during that third origin, the alien Anunnaki left Earth. Now, the origin, the phase number 4 is extremely important. It started in the 1896. It ushered in the American UFO phase. You remember, it was called the Great Airship Scares. Mm-hmm. Now, it appeared, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm listening to you.
It started in 1896, ended in April 1897, and it happened over California and the Midwest.
Right.
The fifth origin, we don't know much about it. It's from 1900 to 1916, so I could not find any colorful information about that era. But
so you're saying that after the ancient eras of the appearance of these craft and the relationship they had with the Anunnaki, the relationship they had with the Zetas, the relationship they had with the Dagon, all of these, they were known as gods. I mean, the Philistines worshipped the Dagon, who Dagon, of course, was a son of Anu, which was, of course, another Anunnaki connection. They all had these relationships, and each relationship, I mean, there were the Anunnaki were of the earth, the Dagon were of the oceans, and they were all here to teach us and to impart all kinds of wisdom to mankind. And then the Anunnaki left us, and it wasn't until the 1800s where we finally saw the modern UFO or the modern flying saucer or the modern flying machine or USO?
That's correct. But the most important phase, which intensified, started around 1917 in Germany, or more exactly, the manufacturing of the first man-made UFO started in 1921 in München, in Munich, in Germany, and ended in 1947. Then after the 47, we have the new era, the 1948 to the present, which is the most important timetable of ufology in history, because as you already know from what you said, now almost 99% of all the UFOs you see in the skies are no longer manufactured or flown or piloted by extraterrestrial. We have to get rid of this. I mean, people keep talking about aliens coming here, aliens are invading us. They knew about us for 4 billion years. We had nothing to offer to them. We have no resources to offer to them except some 11,000 years ago, when they landed on Earth just by mistake, they found material which they needed so badly in the ocean, and especially in the sea surrounding Malta, surrounding Syria, and surrounding Phoenicia. They were looking for the algae, the green algae. This time we don't have any more algae in those Mediterranean areas. So they came here to use the algae as fuel for their engine, and by the same token, according to the book of Ramadosh, they used the algae as a formula to give a new strength to their DNA. Now, this is documented in the book of Osiris and the book of the dead of the Egyptians. They used it, and they call it naphthalene, to embalm the pharaoh of Egypt. So back then, they had reason to come. But when they exploited every single ounce of algae, they left. They had no reason to come back.
Well, you know, it's fascinating, Max, it's fascinating that they needed algae from the oceans for fuel, because that is the same fuel that this Earth needs to survive. We need the algae. We need the small plant life in the oceans, and we need that to keep the planet alive. And if we lose that in our oceans, we will die.
Absolutely. And the alien knew about it. Don't forget, the aliens, 65,000 years ago, the Anunnaki from Aldebaran, not from Nibiru, from Aldebaran Ashtari, when they created us, and their Chimiti is in Akkadian word mean tube, they created us genetically in the laboratory. As a matter of fact, they did not create us 100% from scratch. Some human beings were created by the Anunnaki, that is Aruru. Anu, the big head of the Anunnaki, told Aruru, we need some people here to work for us, okay? To work for us. So she created us genetically, and they captured some primordial human shape. They walk on 3 legs. We call it the Naftar or the Shaba. Some they walk on 4 legs, like animals. We were absolutely animals, worse than apes. So they captured us. They captured the primordial humans from Madagascar, from Brazil, from Turkey, from the Middle East, and they upgraded us genetically. And they created 7 prototypes. And according to the Akkadian and Sumerian clay tablets, this is not fantasy, this is not science fiction. If you read Akkadian, if you know all the Babylonian, you read the clay tablets, you find out that they created us. Because we had to feed them. We had to feed them. We have to work the feed. We have to collect the algae.
So we had to collect all things that had, the algae had chlorophyll in it, and we had to give them that for fuel. And that makes a lot of sense, because I remember I was watching a TV special where they were saying the only thing what this Earth has is very valuable is chlorophyll. And that they find it in the algae, they find it in the plants, and that if aliens were ever to come to this planet, they would be seeking chlorophyll more than anything else, and quite possibly, another thing, digestives or proteins from either humans or
the general
animals.
public has access to privileged information related to the German UFO. For example, in 1950, in March 1950, one of the CIA secret memoranda revealed that, in fact, a highly advanced type of German UFOs seen over the United States and Europe came from the Antarctic German new headquarters in February 1951. Listen to that. In 1951, the Soviet Union and the United States secretly and jointly sent 2 expeditions to Antarctica to spy on post-war Germany, new UFO center and underground in Neu-Schwabenland. The expeditions were mentioned in a secret CIA memoranda issued and signed by General Walter Smith, then director of the CIA, and in a secret memorandum issued and signed by Alan Welsh Dulles, then the deputy director of the agency of the CIA. Now, in addition, the new German center, they manufactured something is unbelievable, beyond the imagination and the wild dream of American scientists. And some of those UFOs, they were seen over, the Capitol in Washington, D.C. You remember that in the 50s.
It was 1952, wasn't it, where they saw those UFOs over the Capitol? There's pictures and all kinds of things, 1952.
That's correct. Now, President Truman called Dr. von Braun, and, to see what was happening. So when asked by President Truman, about the nature and origin of the UFO that the president saw himself too over the Capitol, and he said, where this monster came from, how he talked, President Truman.
Yeah.
So Dr. von Braun said, those flying circle oval machines were built by German scientists in Canada. And he told the president, verbatim, word for word, nothing to worry about it, Mr. President. It is only intimidation, and we know how to deal with it. Dr. Teller did not say intimidation, Edward Teller, the father of the H-bomb. He said it's just harassment. Now, use your mind and analyze the answer of Dr. Brown and Dr. Scheller. One said it's intimidation, and one said it's harassment. So they knew that they were German-made. And something much more mind-binding, those machines flew from the no-fly zone in 51 and 52 from remote areas in Canada. Can you believe that? And and the Canadian authorities, they designed, they specified certain area, no-fly zones, so nobody could fly over those, and they were piloted by German scientists.
Was that the Avro company, Max? Was that the Avro company that created this?
Yes. Now of course, the Colonel Norton and the great German scientist Richard, etc. They were rescued by the OSS. You know the OSS, right?
Right, exactly.
The Office of Strategic Services. The director was General William Donovan. He was a lawyer, and he was hired by President Theodore Roosevelt. It was the precursor of the CIA. So yes, the Avro now. Now those Germans, they left Germany and were recruited by Dr. von Braun. Some came to America, and some came to Canada. Now, the United States Army, Defense, let's say the Air Force, start to explore the possibility of creating UFOs. They called Mr. Frost, a genius in avionics and aerospace from England, to come and see what he can do with that. Mm-hmm. So he started to work on it, but he failed. He could not understand the anti-gravity, the propulsion system, until General Kambler, the head of the Peenemünde and the Polish Center of Research on UFOs and other German scientists, started to show him how to build it. So they built the first prototype in Canada. But then they brought, and they kept it secret. They said, no, there is no Avro. Until a German reporter, published the picture of the Avro and the base in Europe. So everybody knew.
So,
they saw the Avro car.
So let me get this straight. 1951 and 1952, Canada, certain areas of Canada, had no-fly zones because they used certain factories to construct these flying saucers. They were
I don't blame them.
Okay.
I don't blame them. It was before Area 51, of course. It was a secret base.
So all these secret bases were in Canada, and they were German scientists working around the clock. They were working on these prototypes left over from the war. The Wunderweapons that Hitler wanted to have, including the bomb, all were then transferred over to the United States. Now, were there some of these same types of scientists in Russia working on the same flying saucers?
Well, what happened, as you know very well, at the end of World War II, the Russians captured top German scientists, as we did, and they knew about the German UFO program from who? From Marshal Tito, the head of Yugoslavia, okay? And they knew also from correspondence the exchange with Nikola Tesla. And they knew about Nikola Tesla from correspondence he exchanged with Dr. Otto Schumann from the Technical University of Munich and from Maria Orsic. So they had the Russian spy everywhere, even in Los Alamos. So they captured top German scientists to create their version of the UFO, and we captured top German scientists to work on our version of the UFO. And if you follow the transcript of Petersburg Tribunal, where they brought all the bloody bastards, the German war criminals, there is one person never appeared in trial. You know who?
Who?
The head of the German UFO, who murdered thousands of people in Poland and in Germany and used them as slaves to build this program. His name is General Hans Kambler. He is the only one that his name was never mentioned in the tribunal, and he was one of the top 5 who murdered millions of Jews, Gypsies, and Russians in Europe. They never mentioned him.
Weren't Kambler? Okay, Himmler and Kambler were all involved with this, but wasn't von Braun at Peenemünde as well? And weren't they killing Jews in that area during that program?
You're damn right, absolutely. Now, of course, they say that von Braun, when they brought him here, his plan with the V2 was not to kill the Jews or American or British. He had a wider vision. He wanted to reach the moon. Come on, he's the one who built the V1 and the V2 and murdered 6,000 people from London in less than 45 days. Of course he did. But he was not brought to trial, like Richard Mitte was not brought to trial, like Hans Kambler was not brought to trial, like the Norton brothers were not brought to trial. Why? Because they worked for us. I don't mind.
They worked for us creating one of the strangest weapons, one of the strangest craft known as the saucer, the UFO, or whatever. It's just an amazing story, and that's why it's so important to know this, is that a lot of these origins, as Max de Lafayette is telling us, go back. How are you regarded with when you start bringing up this stuff, you start talking about this is history that we don't get taught in school, although it's known by a lot of people because they've read books outside of what the curriculum teaches. How is this accepted by the majority of people you come in contact with?
I will tell you, it's a remarkable question because the answer is going to shed some light. For many years, for many centuries, we took the Bible, the ancient Testament and the New Testament, as well as the Quran, as the gospel truth. Absolutely, that those are the original stories given by God to the Hebrew scribe and to the prophet. Okay, good. Around 1865 and 1915, one of the persons working for the British Museum, Mr. King, he was hired by the Indian British Railroad Company to go to Iraq. Iraq was under the British mandate. And he found out tablets, because then the Akkadian Sumerian clay tablets. He took them to the British Museum, and he he did not know Sumerian or Akkadian. He self-taught linguist, and he started to decipher. Took him many years to decipher some of the tablets. And after 3 months, he gave a statement that really was the greatest blow to religion, to Islam, to Judaism, and to Christianity, and the Vatican went berserk. He said that in those tablets, 1700 years before the Bible was written, the story of the deluge, exactly as it happened and was written in the Bible, was word for word taken from the Sumerian Akkadian tablet. The creation of Adam and Eve and the snake and the apple, as written in our Bible, taken word for word, verbatim, from 1700-year tablet from the Sumerian and Akkadian. All the major stories, all the most important stories in the Bible were taken from the Sumerian and Akkadian. Imagine the shockwave spread from the announcement of the British Museum about the origin of our religion.
So everything came 1,700 years earlier than the Bible, and yet it's once again the account of our relationship. You were talking about Adam and Eve, we're talking about the serpent, we're talking about the apple. All of those stories were prior to the Bible, and yet they are about the relationship between some extraterrestrial god or extraterrestrial gods and mankind. Am I correct?
Correct. Absolutely correct.
And it's just amazing how it's somehow become romanticized as something different, and we no longer refer to it as an extraterrestrial. We no longer refer to it as extraterrestrial. I guess you say relationship, even though we see, like in the Sistine Chapel and other places, where the finger of God is touching the finger of Adam. We see in 2001: A Space Odyssey the monkeys touching the monolith, becoming more than a monkey, becoming more like man, more able to recognize and communicate. These are the same stories told over and over again, and these are the beginnings of our origins. The idea that we do have the ancient aliens passing that Promethean stuff, the Promethean knowledge. Let's talk a little bit more about the SS. Let's talk about General Kammler. Let's talk about Peenemünde. Let's talk about how it all came together and how Germany took an important role in building different types of classes of UFOs. I mean, I want to hear about the Bell. I want to hear about the Glock. A lot of people don't talk about the Glock, but I want to hear about the Glock. What can you tell me about the Bell UFO?
I'm going to drop on you an atomic bomb kind of news flash.
Okay.
Well, and answering your question, do you know why? Do you know why our government does not reveal all the information about the SS UFO program and about the neo-Nazi scientists that they work on new type of UFOs in Argentina, in Canada, and in the United States, and in Russia?
Why?
I'll tell you why. This you will never read it in any book or hear it on any TV show. For years, the Russian Stalin and NKVD and Beria, the chief of the secret police of Russia, told the world that they had a fragment from the skull of Adolf Hitler. You remember the story, correct?
Right, I remember the story. They had a fragment of his skull, yes.
Yeah, and there is a bullet in it. They said, well, this is how we shut things up. Everybody believed it, even us, the Americans. Most recently, when we sent American scientists, when Russia opened its door to the American and to the world, some of our researchers and working for the military here, they went to Russia and they asked permission to look at the skull of, allegedly the skull of Hitler. And they conducted DNA tests on it. You know what they found? They kept it secret for 2 years. That the skull does not belong to Adolf Hitler. It belonged to a Russian, a 14-year-old woman Russian. Can you believe it?
A 14-year-old woman? A 14-year-old girl?
Yes. And this was published most recently in London in The Guardian, one of the most respected and respectable newspaper in Europe. But they did not tell the world about it. So it was not the skull of Hitler. It was the skull of a Russian woman, 40-year-old Russian woman.
A 40-year-old Russian woman. Question. So do you think that Hitler escaped Germany and went to... You do?
Yes, absolutely. This is why Hitler did not shoot himself. Now, Goebbels killed himself, and Himmler committed suicide, and Goering also committed suicide. Hitler and Eva Braun did not die in the bunker. They left with Hans Kammler to Argentina, and they went to the pole, where with at least 50 or 60 top SS scientists and so many submarines and a remarkable fleet and formidable military force did not die. Hitler died in 1965. And Dr. von Braun, Dr. Oppenheimer, Dr. Teller met with Hitler after the Second World War, and they reached kind of an agreement for world peace. Hitler told them, listen to this. Now, when we talk about New World Order, people think that George Bush created it. It was not. It was Hitler. He said, I'm going to destroy the world. I did not finish yet. Germany is not destroyed. And he told them, him and Kammler and Eisenhower, one of the chief scientists, look, see the UFOs. We can rule the world with our wonder weapon that we did not have the time to finish during the Second World War. I can destroy America just in a heartbeat. So they reached an agreement with him, and he agreed to provide some of the German technology. This is one of the reasons our government will never reveal the truth about the UFOs. It will be a world scandal. It will be a catastrophe.
So if the United States was ever to reveal the deal that they made for the bomb and for everything else, Hitler was involved and he died in 1965, but they all met with him, Oppenheimer, von Braun, all of them were all answering to Hitler, and Hitler had a scorched earth policy that he was pushing, and he did so with, there were so many people that were involved with this. Skorzeny, Kammler was involved. I'm trying to go through all the names that I remember hearing about that were... Go ahead.
Richard Mieter, Dr. Gonderberg, the boss of von Braun, all of them. They were still alive. They did not die. Even Bormann, they said that after they found the body of Bormann, and true, he left on 17th of April, a flying saucer, landed in Berlin, and it was flown by Hannah Reich. You know who Hannah Reich is? The world's most famous woman pilot back then, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She flew the UFO, and I have a picture of her with her UFO, and took Hitler and Himmler. They went to Poland, took Himmler, and they went to Argentina with a UFO, and then they sent a submarine with additional supplies and mercury, etc., needed as a fuel for their UFOs. And 1 year later, after they established a colony with with Perón and Eva Perón, etc., they became very good friends, they went to the pole. This is an absolute fact, absolute. And now, of course, he died, of course.
Of course, the Perons were very good friends with Hitler. I know that Juan Perón was a very good friend of Adolf Hitler's, and that's why there was refuge given to a lot of, like, to Joseph Mengele and several others in South America. Yeah. There was an area called Bariloche, which was near Chile. I visited there, and most of the people there, they're blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryans, and they're there, and it's frightening because amongst all well, there's Italians and there's Germans and there's Spaniards, but of course there's also the people of the Campo that are darker skinned. But you look, and it's just eerie to see the Germans that are there, the descendants, and also the ones that are the war criminals. There are still many there that have German names like Richter and other names I remember running into that were all Germans, German-born, and they were escapees from the war.
And Mengele continued with his genetic experiment. That's why you see in Chile, in Peru, in Paraguay, and in Argentina, south of Argentina, young boys, young girls, blonde with the blue eyes. They were still preparing the new breed of the new neo-Nazis. And the Argentinian knew about it, and the Chilean government knew about it until 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was a big scandal, and they brought the head of the two colonies, Germany, to trial. They did not finish their genetic and military program. And to tell you the truth, I'm a proud American, but I have to face the truth of history. One, we did not have space program in America. We did not have space program in America. When Dr. Goddard told us, hey, he can have look at the missile I'm creating, look at the rocket, they laughed at him. The German copied his technique, his method. And so we did not have a space program. What we had is a continuation of the German space and avionics program. All the scientists that they work on any space program and who landed us on the moon were German. Absolute fact. Plus, they were provided by additional information.
But okay, so let me stop for a minute. So okay, then can we conclude that when Maria Orsic, who was the head of the Vril, was channeling information from these intraterrestrials, did that information was it given to the Luftwaffe, or do we have... Now, I've also heard the story about something crashing in the Black Forest sometime in the 1920s or so, and then in the Owl Mountains they were taking care of it with... They were working on the Glock, they were working on several other things, they were working on the Vril, the antimatter, everything. Was it all about Maria Orsic, or was it something more?
No. At that moment, in 1917 and 1921, we had in Germany two movements in avionics and aerospace and outer space. One was under the direction and the sponsorship and the leadership of Maria Orsic and Dr. Otto Schumann from the Technical University of München. And they kept it secret from the SS for 4 or 5 years. And simultaneously, several programs in Brandenburg and in Munich and in Berlin about anti-gravity program were conducted separately by the SS and by the Luftwaffe. However, we have learned recently that some of the scientists, members of the Thule, who financed Maria Orsic project, and they were member of the board of the Messerschmitt, they told Himmler and Kammler about the technical data that Maria Orsic had. Now, the SS, they were working on the value UFO, shape of a bell, while Maria Orsic and Dr. Schumann, they were working on the oval, the circular, the disc-shaped spacecraft. There is a big difference.
Okay.
And there is a third group, independently, because the Germans did not trust each other. Göring hated Himmler, and Himmler hated Bormann, and Bormann hated Speer. They were all in competition to gain the grace of Hitler and to be number one. So this way they never shared their technology, their secrets. There is a third group which was under the sponsorship and the leadership of the Horten brothers. Now, the Horten brothers designed the first effective kind of UFO called the Horten 209. It is a crescent shape. Now, do you remember when Arnold Kenneth spotted a formation of 6 flying saucers?
Yeah, Kenneth Arnold saw them. Yeah, Kenneth Arnold saw them in the northwest, right here near Mount Rainier. Yes, I remember that. Correct.
And people start to say, "Hey, those are flying saucers." They are not. They were a replica.
They're seeing this, whether or not it's been buried in sand, whether or not it crashed there. It's just a test saucer. Who knows? But right now, we're getting to the bottom of this with Max de Lafayette. We're glad to have him on the program. Welcome back to Ground Zero. And we were talking about, before we had to go to the break, we were talking about Kenneth Arnold and how he saw not flying saucers, but what he saw was something that looked like a flying wing craft. Am I correct?
Yeah, I have bad news for you. I can't stay much longer than 1 minute on the phone. Something happened during the break, and I'm not in liberty to tell you what happened. I can't no longer talk about the subject. So we have only 1 minute. Use your imagination, okay?
Okay.
You understand?
All right. Well, then, are you saying goodbye?
I have 1 more minute, so we can wrap it in a gentle way.
Okay, go right ahead and wrap it up.
I should not talk further on the subject, and I respect that. So I can tell one thing to finish it just for 1 minute. But Mr. Arnold saw it was a replica of the German Horten 229. And short after what happened, was the Roswell crash. Now, I want to end up with announcement to your listener there in the millions I know, that the CIA and the NSA, they were never in the business of cheating the American public or giving them some misinformation. If they had to not reveal the whole truth, they did reveal some, it's because they have very solid reason, because they don't want the public to go berserk. Should they, if they had revealed everything, absolutely everything to the public, this will not be in the best interest of the American. So what they did it with a good intention, just to protect the sanity and the state of mind and the national security of America, which I believe you understand very well, and you agree with that some secret should not be made public, because at that time we had the Soviet bloc, and now you have terrorists all over the world. So what they are doing is for the best interest, and people should not continue to throw stone at the NSA, the CIA, and FBI, and the State Air Force, because really they don't know what they are talking about.
The NSA and the CIA don't know anything. We should not cast stones at them, as you're saying?
No, because a lot of people, and ufologists, they are accusing the NSA and the CIA and the FBI and the United States Air Force and the Pentagon and the DOD and the Department of Energy that they are hiding vital secrets that the American public have the right to know about. I think the American people have the right to know some, but not absolutely everything, and especially that's when they say that the military and the NSA and the CIA and the New World Order established by top secret American organization are kidnapping people and conducting genetic experiments on them. This is absolutely nonsense. This is rubbish. The United States government was never engaged directly or indirectly in kidnapping people and conducting genetic experiments on them. They had a very advanced exotic weapon system, which is the absolute right and the national right and the human right and the international right of America to protect American life and interests worldwide. But I want people to know that the United States government is not involved in any shape or form in conducting very macabre projects at all. And sooner or later, the United States government will come and will explain exactly what happened. They are waiting for the right time and the right condition and the right place. And this is going to happen before 2020. I give you my word on it.
Okay.
I have to go. It was wonderful. And my Lord, you know so much, you know more than I do. It was a remarkable experience, and I hope we meet again in the future, and I hope that I have been useful to you and to your listener.
You have. I hope you're okay.
Yeah, thank you. Send me an email, okay? Write to me. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Did you notice something? He immediately, before he ended the call, he said that we should not believe the CIA, the NSA, or the United States government know anything about these saucers or these flying saucers. We should not think that they're not lying to us. Didn't he just change his story? Halfway through, he says, I have to go. And then immediately, his last words before he left was that we should not challenge the CIA. We should not say that the NSA or the government knows anything because they know nothing. It's nonsense. They're not connecting. They're not doing these genetic experiments. They don't know anything about the genetic experiments being done by the aliens. They know nothing about it. And then he left. I have never had that happen before on my program. I have never had that happen before. I'm stunned. He was talking about the Nazis. He was talking about the Germans. He was talking about the experiments. He was talking about the saucers. He was talking about all this information. And we came back and he says, I have to go. He was supposed to do 3 hours with us. He promised 3 hours with us. And now he says he has to go. And his final thoughts, his final things he said to us were, don't think that our government, that the United States government, don't think that the CIA, the NSA, or anyone's covering up. He says that's nonsense. Don't think that. He changed his mind. He changed his story. Did he change his story? Am I wrong or what? I mean, it went from one thing to immediately disregard everything I said. What just happened? What the hell just happened on this show? Let's take a break. We're going to say hello to Max now. Max, welcome to Ground Zero.
Hello there. It's so lovely to be with you.
And it's so wonderful to have you on. Tonight, I'm sure we're going to have a very, very deep and interesting discussion about our origins and some of what I've been talking about, what's happening in the Baltic Sea right now with the finding of this anomaly. Have you heard or do you have an opinion on what's going on out there?
My time and my current commitment to some organization would not allow me to go in depth about the Baltic Sea event. But basically, any appearance or report on underwater activities generated by unidentified submerged objects, as we already know since 1948, it's related to either the post-war German scientists who left Germany on April 21st or 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
They went to secret bases in Argentina and somewhere else. Or these events are related to the intraterrestrial. The term intraterrestrial is composed of two words in Latin: intra, which means from within, side, and terrestrial from terrestre, from the Latin, which means earth. It means aliens who live on earth. We have a lot of documentation on this topic. Now, those unidentified flying objects and submerged objects that now they are taking Europe, as you said, by storm, are piloted by the Grey. In modern ufology, they refer to the Grey as the Zetas, who came from Zeta Reticuli.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they navigate is so amazing, because they use a new navigation system that can't be detected by any sonar system or any space satellite. They call that the corridor plasma. Now, this corridor plasma has been used in the Baltic Sea, as well as it was used in the English Channel, near Norway, in Malta, in Lebanon in 1858, and for the past 13 years near Otek, the military naval base, in the Bahamas. So
talking about Otek. Otek is a military base in the Bahamas that is so secret, not many people talk about Otek.
Well, they can't, because in the past, two scientists, to be very honest, one scientist and one person who worked at Otek as a remote viewer, did they had the guts to go public, and they said what it appears to be some joint operations between the Greys, the intraterrestrial alien, and the American Navy. And this is what they were allowed to talk about, as you said perfectly. It is the new Naval 51 area, Area 51.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this now is taking the lead in a futuristic and meta-space program. The meta-space program, it is any vehicle or any flying machine, anti-gravity machine, or time machine that penetrate space pocket in the fourth dimension or parallel dimension. And it links the Grey to outer space as well as to underwater, because when they use those machines, and what they're using now in the Baltic Sea and somewhere else as well, they use those machines to jump from space-time pocket to another space-time pocket.
So they open up. Do they open up wormholes? Is that what they do? They open up some sort of a magnetic wormhole to go from pocket to pocket?
That's correct. Now there is a report. I think it's no longer top secret because everything leaks in America. They said that those machines, when they don't have a traditional flight pattern like we see with normal jets and airplanes, what they do, they jump from They don't fly, they jump. This was written in the report, the military report. By using the verb jump, means they jump from one time-space pocket to another time-space pocket. It's not yet a wormhole, because the wormhole, or the galactic door called Bab in Anunnaki, it leads to an outer space dimension. The space-time pocket is very close to Earth. It's a parallel dimension. This is why sometimes we see a UFO flying in front of us, and oh dear, all of a sudden it disappears, because it leaves the first pocket and jump into the second pocket. This was never been understood by the ufologists and by the civilians.
Well, Max, what we will do, I'm going to take a break right now, but what we will do is I want to talk more about all of this that you're bringing up, the time-dimensional travel, the intraterrestrials is what you call them, the science behind it, all of the things that go with ufology, both underwater ufology and what goes on in the sky. I guess you could call it USO. There are a lot of reports over Lake Michigan, the Great Lakes, Great Salt Lake and Salt Lake City. That's another place where a lot of UFOs are seen, over Antelope Island. A lot over the oceans. And many stories have been buried regarding UFOs and the relationship to the sea. Their emergence from liquid medium has gone relatively ignored. And as my guest, Max de Lafayette, has said, you know, the Germans were doing their tests in the Baltic Sea of their flying saucers. Oddtech is a place that's seldom talked about. It is the Area 51 of the ocean. It's the Area 51 of the ocean. It's near the Bermuda Triangle, of all places. And what's interesting is all the artifacts that are underwater there, the Bermuda Triangle, are spoken of as well. They know that there's power in the ocean. They know these things. And when we're talking about intraterrestrials, as Max de Lafayette has brought up in our introduction, you start to see that there is a connection to water, bodies of water, water and aliens, water and the extraterrestrials. They descend from the sky, plunge into the sea, or they plunge into some inland lake. And this raises the question, do aliens